Today, we're going to dig into the story of a lost American giant, an animal that, believe it or not, completely changed how we think about the history of life on Earth. You know, when we picture the Ice Age, our minds usually jump straight to woolly mammoths, right? Out on some vast frozen plain. But there was this other beast, a totally different giant, that was stalking the ancient forests of North America. It was shorter, built like a tank, and honestly, a whole lot more mysterious. And they called it that for a very good reason. I mean, when people first started digging up its massive bones, it created this puzzle that stumped the greatest scientific minds of the day. This thing wasn't just an animal, it was America's first great prehistoric mystery. Okay, so let's get into this, because the Mastodon story is, surprisingly, all tangled up with the story of America itself. Just try to imagine it's the 1700s. You're a colonist, you're digging in a field, and you pull out a tooth the size of a brick, or a thigh bone that's taller than you are. These finds were a huge deal. They kicked off this massive debate. What in the world was this thing? And maybe more importantly, where is it now? And here's why this was such a game changer. You have to remember, back then, the whole idea of a species just vanishing forever, that was basically unthinkable. But the American Incognitum forced everyone to reconsider. There was no living animal like it, anywhere. Its bones were the first solid proof that life on Earth had a history of termination, a truly revolutionary idea that turned biology on its head. All right, now for the big one. Everybody gets these two mixed up. They've been confused in movies, books, you name it. So let's just set the record straight. Once and for all, a mastodon is not a woolly mammoth. This right here is the key difference that explains everything else about them. Think of it this way. Mastodons were the forest specialists. They were built to push through dense woods and munch on trees and shrubs. Mammoths, on the other hand, were creatures of the wide open plains, perfectly adapted to a life of grinding down tough, gritty grasses. Two completely different jobs, two completely different animals. And this table really shows you just how deep that split goes. I mean, look at that evolutionary split. 27 million years ago. That's a staggering amount of time. They weren't just distant cousins, they were from totally different branches of the whole elephant-like family tree. And this led to completely different body plans. The mastodon was like this low-slung, super robust forest tank, while the mammoth was the taller, more slender planeswalker. But you know, the real smoking gun is in the teeth. In fact, the name mastodon literally tells you everything you need to know. It comes from Greek for breast tooth, which sounds a little weird, but it's describing these unique, cone-shaped points on their molars. They were perfect for crushing and snapping twigs and branches. Mammoth teeth? Totally different. They were flat, like grinding plates, for chewing up all that grass. The teeth really do tell the whole story. So we know what they were and what made them different. But here's where it gets really cool. Thanks to some absolutely incredible fossil finds, we can actually piece together what a day in the life of a mastodon was like. This is just amazing. I mean, scientists were literally able to analyze the undigested food in the gut of a mastodon that died thousands and thousands of years ago. It gives us this perfect little snapshot of its world. A forest full of spruce trees with wetlands nearby. This wasn't some grazer out on the plains. This animal was feasting on the forest itself. And their lives were packed with drama. By analyzing the chemical layers in this one male mastodon's tusk, which grow kind of like tree rings, scientists could track his movements across the landscape. And they found he made these long migrations every single year, probably to go find mates and fight for dominance. And how did his story end? With a fatal stab wound right to the head from another male's tusk. This gives us a picture of intense competition, a lot like the muss we see in modern bull elephants. So when you put all these clues together, you get a life story that feels pretty familiar, a lot like their modern elephant relatives. They took a long time to grow up, had these incredibly long pregnancies, and the females and kids stuck together in family groups. But this also points to a huge vulnerability. They reproduced so slowly. A population would need a really, really long time to bounce back from any kind of disaster. For millions of years, the mastodon was a king in its world. But then, a brand new and incredibly clever predator showed up on the continent. Now, for a long time, the old story was that the so-called Clovis people were the first ones to hunt these giants. But newer discoveries, like the Page Ladson site in Florida, have totally rewritten that story. It proves that humans and mastodons were interacting for at least 1,500 years before the Clovis culture even appeared. We were a part of their world for a lot longer than we thought.
But here's the thing. Proving that humans actually hunted an animal this big is really, really hard. You need more than just some bones and tools found near each other. You need a smoking gun. And up at the Mammoth site in Washington State, that is exactly what they found. Okay, get ready for this because it's incredible.
Not only did they find a spear point literally stuck inside the mastodon's rib, but with modern tech, they figured out that the spear point itself was carved from the bone of another mastodon. It's just undeniable proof of a hunt, and it shows that these early hunters were unbelievably sophisticated. They were using parts from their last kill to make the weapons for their next one. Which brings us, of course, to the final and most tragic chapter in the mastodon's long story. Why did they disappear? What or who is responsible?
For decades, this has been a huge debate among scientists, and it's basically come down to two main suspects. Suspect number one, the dramatic climate change at the end of the Ice Age that totally wrecked their habitat. Suspect number two, the arrival of highly skilled human hunters who just pushed them over the edge. Now, the case for climate change is pretty strong. Remember, mastodons were specialists. They needed those spruce forests and wetlands to survive. But as the glaciers melted and the world warmed up really fast, those forests changed completely. They started to shrink, breaking up the mastodon populations into smaller, isolated groups. They were basically losing their homes and their favorite restaurants all at the same time. On the other hand, the timing is just really suspicious. The mastodons disappear from the fossil record right around the same time that human populations are really starting to take off. And let's not forget their slow reproduction rate. Think about it. Even a little bit of steady hunting pressure on an animal that breeds that slowly could be absolutely devastating. It could stop the population from ever being able to recover.
So where do most scientists land today? Well, it probably wasn't just one or the other. It was a deadly combination. The best way to think about it is like a 1-2 punch. Climate change threw the first punch, weakening the mastodon populations, stressing them out, and splitting them up. And then human hunters came in and delivered the knockout blow, that final bit of pressure that the already struggling species just couldn't handle.
The American Mastodon was a true survivor. Its lineage lasted for millions of years. But in the end, it just couldn't adapt fast enough to a world with rapid environmental change and a brand new, unprecedented predator. Its story is this powerful, haunting echo from the deep past. It's a warning about the delicate, fragile balance between a species, its climate, and our own profound impact on the planet.